Now to the double murder in Wilson County. We're learning the suspect is charged with killing his own brother and his mother. Police identifying the victims as 50-year-old Dana Jenkins and her 15-year-old son, Daryn Cox. Jenkins' 25-year-old son, Daron Jenkins, is now charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The victims were found inside a home yesterday evening on Snowden Drive.
Juanelia Carnegie lives next door to her cousin, Dana Jenkins.
She was a very sweet person. Always smiled. I can see her smile right now. She always smiled.
Carnegie says that in the days leading up to the murders, she felt something was off with Daryn.
You could see it, the look. It told you everything. But I had no idea that you was getting ready to do what you did.
Dana Jenkins was known as a strong and caring mother who devoted her life to her children. Friends and relatives often described her as the kind of woman who put family first, no matter the circumstances. She worked hard, stayed involved in her children's lives, and believed deeply in keeping her household together. To those who knew her best, Dana represented stability, patience, and unconditional love. Living in Georgia, Dana focused on raising her children in a safe and supportive environment. Like many parents, she faced daily challenges, balancing responsibilities, managing finances, and guiding her children as they grew older. Despite those pressures, she remained determined to provide a home filled with structure and care. Her love for her children was visible in the small details of everyday life, from checking on their school progress to making sure they felt protected. Among her children was her teenage son, Daryn Cox. He was still young, full of energy, and just beginning to discover his path in life. Teachers and relatives described him as respectful and quiet, someone who enjoyed spending time with friends and family. He had dreams for the future, like many teenagers his age, and his mother supported those dreams with encouragement and guidance. But there was another member of the household whose struggles would eventually change everything. Dana's adult son, Daron Jenkins. Daryn had faced difficulties in his life, and those challenges sometimes created tension within the family. According to people close to the situation, Dana never stopped trying to help him. She believed in giving her children second chances and hoped that patience and support would lead to positive change. Even when problems arose, she remained committed to keeping the family united. Family members later said Dana often carried emotional burdens quietly. She tried to protect her younger son from stress, while also offering guidance to her older son. It was not an easy balance, but she approached it with determination and love. To outsiders, the household appeared ordinary, a mother doing her best to hold her family together despite challenges. On most days, life inside the home followed a familiar routine. Dana worked, cared for her children, and maintained the responsibilities that come with running a household. Nothing about those routines suggested that danger was approaching. There were no clear signs that the family would soon face a tragedy that would shock their community. Then, in 2023, a series of events inside that home would forever change the lives of everyone connected to Dana Jenkins and her son Daryn Cox. What began as an ordinary period in their lives would soon turn into a heartbreaking story of loss, betrayal, and consequences. If you want more real-life stories told with clarity and respect, remember to like and subscribe to Behind the Crime Tape. While Dana Jenkins worked tirelessly to keep her family stable, her adult son, Daron Jenkins, was facing challenges that were becoming harder to manage. Those who knew the family said Dana loved all her children deeply, but she worried especially about Daryn. He had experienced difficulties that affected his behavior and decision-making, and those struggles created tension inside the home. Despite the pressure, Dana refused to give up on him. She believed that with patience, guidance, and support, he could find a better path. Family members later explained that Dana often stepped in to help Daryn during difficult periods. She offered him a place to stay, provided emotional support, and tried to encourage positive choices. Like many parents, she held on to hope that her child would overcome his challenges. Her love for him did not fade, even when situations became stressful. She wanted her family to remain united and believed that compassion could make a difference. However, Maintaining peace inside the household was not always easy. There were moments when disagreements occurred, and frustration sometimes filled the home. Daryn's struggles began to create emotional strain that affected everyone around him. Dana tried to manage these tensions quietly, often shielding her younger son, Daryn Cox, from the conflict. She wanted him to focus on school, friendships, and the normal experiences of teenage life. Daryn, the younger brother, looked up to his mother as a source of strength. He relied on her guidance and trusted her to keep him safe. Friends described him as respectful and kind, someone who enjoyed simple activities like spending time with family and staying connected with his community. He was still growing and learning, with his future ahead of him. As months passed, the atmosphere inside the home became more complicated. Stress and uncertainty slowly built beneath the surface. Dana continued doing everything she could to maintain stability, but the pressure was becoming harder to ignore. People close to the family later said they sensed that something was wrong, though they never imagined the situation would escalate into tragedy. Despite the growing tension, Dana remained hopeful. She believed that families could overcome challenges through patience and understanding. She continued offering support, determined to protect her children and keep the household together. But behind closed doors, unresolved problems were quietly intensifying. The emotional strain inside the home was reaching a breaking point, setting the stage for events that would soon shock the community and leave a family forever changed. As time went on, the tension inside Dana Jenkins' home became more noticeable. What once felt like ordinary family stress slowly began to feel heavier and more unpredictable. Dana continued doing everything she could to keep peace in the household, but the emotional strain surrounding her adult son, Daron Jenkins, was becoming harder to manage. Those closest to the family later said there were moments when they sensed something was wrong, even if they could not clearly explain what it was. Dana remained committed to supporting her son, believing that patience and guidance could help him find stability. She offered encouragement, tried to keep communication open, and made sacrifices to ensure he had a place to stay. Like many parents, she refused to turn her back on her child, even when the situation became difficult. Her love for him remained strong, and she hoped that time and understanding would lead to positive change. However, the pressure inside the home was affecting everyone. Daryn Cox, the younger brother, began noticing the tension around him. Although he was still focused on school and teenage responsibilities, he could sense that the atmosphere in the house was different. Friends later described him as quiet and observant, someone who tried to stay out of conflict. He trusted his mother to handle problems and believed she would keep him safe. Neighbors and relatives later recalled occasional disagreements within the household. These moments were not constant, but when they happened, they created uneasiness. Dana often worked to calm situations quickly, determined to restore order and protect her younger son from emotional stress. She carried the burden of responsibility alone, believing it was her duty to keep the family together. As weeks passed, small warning signs began to appear. Daron's behavior became more unpredictable, and his frustration seemed to grow. Dana continued trying to manage the situation, but the strain was taking a toll on her peace of mind. She worried about her children's future and hoped the tension would eventually pass. Unfortunately, those warning signs were not fully understood at the time. No one imagined how serious the situation could become or how quickly events could spiral out of control. What seemed like family conflict beneath the surface was moving toward a breaking point. Soon, an ordinary day inside that home would turn into a moment that would shock the community, leaving loved ones searching for answers and struggling to understand how a family could face such a devastating loss.
Released from prison last week, is now charged with killing his mother and younger brother after they were found dead in their Wilson County home on Monday.
Today, a family member who lives right next door is talking with WITN.
Yeah, Daron Jenkins is facing 2 counts of first-degree murder after police say he killed his mother and younger brother. They were found dead here in this home behind me. Now the cousin of the mother is speaking to us, trying to figure out how this could have happened.
I always smile. I can see her smile right now. She always smiled.
That's how Wanilia Cornigi describes her cousin, Dana Jenkins. Now she is left shocked and hurt after learning Jenkins was found dead in her Wilson home alongside her 15-year-old son. The suspect in these horrific murders, Jenkins's older son.
I would have never thought that. I would have never thought he would do something like that. Not like this.
Police say on Monday they went to this home on Snowden Drive shortly before 5:30 p.m. and found 50-year-old Dana Jenkins and a 15-year-old boy dead. According to Carnegie, the 15-year-old's name is Daryn. Tuesday, police say they have the son of Dana and the older brother to Daron Jenkins in custody for these deaths. Carnegie says that in the days leading up to the murders, she felt something was off with Daryn.
You could see it, the look. It told you everything. But I had no idea that you was getting ready to do what you did.
In 2023, what began as an ordinary day inside Dana Jenkins' home would soon become the moment that changed everything. The household had followed its usual routine. Dana focused on her responsibilities, making sure her younger son, Daryn Cox, stayed on track with school and daily activities. Like many mothers, she tried to maintain a sense of normalcy, even while dealing with the ongoing stress surrounding her adult son, Daron Jenkins. That day did not begin with obvious signs of danger. There were no emergency calls, no loud disturbances that alerted neighbors right away. Instead, the events unfolded inside the home, away from public view. According to investigators, tension had been building between family members, creating an atmosphere that was emotionally charged. What might have started as disagreement or frustration soon escalated into a situation that no one present could reverse. At some point during the day, a confrontation occurred inside the residence. Investigators later determined that the conflict intensified quickly, turning into a crisis within minutes. The peaceful environment Dana had worked so hard to maintain was suddenly replaced by fear and confusion. Daryn, still a teenager, found himself caught in a situation far beyond his control, a moment that would tragically end his young life before he had the chance to grow into adulthood. After the incident, silence filled the home. Hours passed without communication from the family, and concern began to grow among relatives and acquaintances. When loved ones were unable to reach Dana or her younger son, they sensed something was wrong. Attempts to contact them went unanswered, raising alarm and prompting people close to the family to seek help. Eventually, authorities were notified, and officers were sent to the residence to check on the family's welfare. When law enforcement arrived, they entered the home and made a heartbreaking discovery. Inside, they found that Dana Jenkins and her teenage son, Daryn Cox, had lost their lives. The scene confirmed that a tragedy had taken place, one that would send shockwaves through the community. Neighbors watched as police vehicles filled the street, their flashing lights breaking the quiet of the neighborhood. Word spread quickly that something terrible had happened. Residents struggled to understand how such a devastating event could occur inside a family home. For investigators, the discovery marked the beginning of a complex case. Their focus shifted immediately to identifying who was responsible and understanding what had led to the confrontation. For the family, however, the reality was much more personal. They had lost a mother and a son in a single, unimaginable moment. The day that started like any other had ended in tragedy, leaving a family shattered and a community searching for answers. After the heartbreaking discovery inside the Jenkins home, investigators immediately began working to understand what had happened. Detectives secured the scene and carefully documented every detail, knowing that the truth would depend on the evidence collected in those early hours. The atmosphere around the residence was tense, as neighbors gathered outside, watching police officers move in and out of the home. Many people struggled to process the news that a mother and her teenage son had lost their lives inside a place that was meant to be safe. Law enforcement officials started by interviewing relatives and individuals who had recently been in contact with the family. They asked questions about the family dynamic, recent disagreements, and any unusual behavior that might explain the tragedy. As the investigation progressed, attention quickly turned toward Dana's adult son, Daron Jenkins. According to authorities, he had been living in the home and was one of the last people known to have been with Dana and Daryn before their deaths. Detectives reviewed phone records, timelines, and witness statements to determine his movements during the hours leading up to the incident. They compared those details with the physical evidence collected at the scene. The more information they gathered, the more their suspicions grew. Investigators began to believe that the tragedy was not the result of an outside intruder or an unexpected accident, but rather an act carried out by someone within the household. This realization shocked the community. The idea that a family member could be responsible for such a devastating act left neighbors and relatives in disbelief. Friends of the family described Dana as a loving mother who always tried to help her children. while Daron was remembered as a respectful teenager with a bright future ahead of him. Their sudden loss was difficult to understand, especially given the close relationships they shared. As investigators continued piecing together the timeline, they located Daron Jenkins and brought him in for questioning. During the interview process, detectives worked to clarify the events that had taken place inside the home. They asked detailed questions, carefully noting his responses and comparing them with the evidence already collected. This stage of the investigation was critical, as it would determine whether sufficient proof existed to move forward with criminal charges. For Dana and Daron's loved ones, the investigation brought both painful clarity and a desperate hope for justice. They wanted answers about what had happened and why such a tragedy had occurred. As the case developed, it became increasingly clear that the truth would be difficult to accept. The search for justice had begun, and the next step would determine whether accountability would follow. As investigators continued examining the evidence, the case reached a turning point that no one in the family wanted to believe. Detectives had spent hours reviewing statements, analyzing the scene, and reconstructing the timeline of events inside the home. Each new detail pointed in the same direction. The evidence suggested that the tragedy had not been caused by an outsider, but by someone who lived under the same roof. Someone Dana Jenkins had trusted as her own son. Law enforcement officials soon located Daron Jenkins and placed him under arrest. The moment news of the arrest spread, the community reacted with shock and disbelief. Many neighbors had known the family for years and struggled to understand how such a devastating situation could happen within a household. The thought that a mother and teenage son had lost their lives at the hands of a close family member left people shaken and searching for answers. Authorities announced that Daron Jenkins was facing serious criminal charges in connection with the deaths of Dana Jenkins and Daryn Cox. The charges reflected the severity of the situation and the evidence collected during the investigation. Officials emphasized that the case would move forward through the legal system, where facts would be carefully examined and responsibility would be determined according to the law. For Dana's relatives, the arrest confirmed their worst fears. Grief quickly mixed with confusion and heartbreak. They remembered the years Dana spent trying to support her son, offering guidance and encouragement even when times were difficult. She believed in giving him opportunities to change, hoping that patience and love would lead him toward a better future. That hope made the outcome even more painful to accept. Daron's friends and classmates also struggled to process the news. Teachers described him as a respectful student who had his whole life ahead of him. He was at an age where dreams and possibilities were just beginning to take shape. The sudden loss of his life left a deep emotional impact on everyone who knew him. As the case moved into the courtroom phase, prosecutors began preparing their evidence, determined to present a clear account of what had happened. The arrest was only the beginning of the legal process, but it marked an important step toward accountability. For the grieving family, justice became the only path forward, not to erase their pain, but to acknowledge the truth and honor the memory of the lives that had been taken. The tragedy had forever changed the family, leaving behind questions that might never be fully answered. Yet one thing remained certain: the search for justice had begun. If you want more real-life stories told with clarity and respect, remember to like and subscribe to Behind the Crime Tape. As the case against Daron Jenkins moved into the courtroom, the focus shifted from investigation to accountability. Prosecutors began organizing the evidence gathered by detectives, preparing to present a clear timeline of what had happened inside the home. For the family of Dana Jenkins and Daryn Cox, this stage of the process was both necessary and emotionally exhausting. They knew the courtroom would bring painful details to the surface, yet they also hoped it would provide answers and justice. Court hearings drew attention from the community, as many people had followed the case from the beginning. Friends, relatives, and neighbors attended proceedings to show support for the victim's family. The atmosphere inside the courtroom was quiet and serious. Every statement, every piece of evidence, carried the weight of 2 lives lost and a family forever changed. During the proceedings, prosecutors explained the sequence of events that led to the tragedy. They described how tension inside the household had built over time, and how the situation eventually escalated into a confrontation. Evidence collected from the scene, along with witness testimony, was presented, to demonstrate responsibility for the deaths of Dana and her teenage son. Each detail painted a clearer picture of the events that unfolded that day. The defense team also presented its arguments, emphasizing the importance of fairness in the legal process. They questioned aspects of the investigation and sought to ensure that every decision was based on accurate information. This exchange between both sides is a standard part of the justice system, designed to ensure that the final outcome is reached carefully and responsibly. For Dana's loved ones, the courtroom became a place of remembrance as well as accountability. They listened as the lives of their family members were discussed in legal terms, a process that was difficult but necessary. Many family members held on to photographs of Dana and Daron, reminding themselves of the people they had lost, not just victims in a case, but beloved members of their family. Outside the courthouse, community members expressed sympathy and support. Messages of encouragement appeared on social media, and neighbors spoke about the importance of recognizing warning signs and offering help to families in crisis. The tragedy had become a reminder of how fragile life can be and how quickly situations can change. As the trial moved closer to its conclusion, one question remained at the center of everyone's mind. Would the court deliver justice for Dana Jenkins and Daryn Cox? And would the decision bring even a small measure of peace to a grieving family? In the months following the courtroom proceedings, the reality of the tragedy continued to weigh heavily on the family of Dana Jenkins and Daryn Cox. The legal process had provided answers and accountability, but it could never erase the pain of losing two loved ones in a single devastating moment. For those closest to them, life would never return to the way it once was. The home that once held laughter, conversation, and shared memories had become a symbol of loss and heartbreak. Family members focused on remembering Dana as the devoted mother she had always been. They spoke about her kindness, her patience, and the sacrifices she made to provide for her children. She was the type of parent who stayed strong during difficult times and believed deeply in keeping her family together. Even when challenges arose, she remained committed to supporting her children and protecting them from harm. Those memories became a source of comfort as loved ones tried to move forward. Daron, too, was remembered for the promise he carried into the future. Friends and teachers described him as respectful, quiet, and full of potential. He was still discovering who he would become, with dreams that had only just begun to take shape. His absence left an empty space in classrooms, friendships, and family gatherings. For his peers, the tragedy served as a painful reminder of how quickly life can change. The community also struggled to come to terms with what had happened. Neighbors who once exchanged greetings with the family found themselves reflecting on the importance of checking in on one another and offering support when someone appears to be struggling. The case sparked conversations about mental health, family stress, and the need for resources that help families manage difficult situations before they escalate into crisis. For relatives, healing became a slow and emotional journey. They leaned on each other for strength, holding on to memories of Dana and Daron while trying to rebuild their lives. They promised to keep their legacy alive by supporting one another and honoring the values that Dana had always taught: love, patience, and resilience. Today, the story of Dana Jenkins and Daryn Cox stands as a reminder of the lasting consequences of conflict and the importance of seeking help during moments of emotional distress. Their lives continue to be remembered by those who love them, and their memory encourages others to choose compassion, communication, and support over anger. Thank you for following this story. If you want more real-life cases told with clarity, respect, and purpose, remember to like and subscribe to Behind the Crime Tape.
Jenkins is also accused of killing his 15-year-old brother, a Wilson County school student who is being remembered by Bedingfield High School and Mount Moriah Community Church in Wilson.
They loved each other. They loved us. We loved them, especially Daryn. He meant the world to all of us. Our teens here, they're grieving heavily.
According to court documents, Jenkins was released from prison on March 25th on separate charges, just 1 week before the incident. Jenkins is facing 2 counts of first-degree murder as Wilson police investigate the circumstances surrounding the victims' deaths.
This is a tragedy, and honestly, there is no winner in this. And I'll be praying for everyone watching this, everyone affected by this and impacted by this.